Praise the Lord. I trust that by the grace of God, you are doing well. This is Pastor Nicholas Asari, and tonight I want to make a video. It's a second to the first video that I made about appreciating mothers. So this is really a continuation. When I did the first one, many of you gave me some good comments and suggestions. And so I realized that there are still some other issues that I need to talk about. I guess there are some that are often overlooked. So tonight I want to take a little bit of your time to talk about mother's appreciation. If you haven't seen the first one, I would suggest that you watch that one. This is Pastor Nicholas Asari, and I would appreciate it very much if you would like and subscribe and also share it with your friends, with your family, because we need to think about this issue about mothers, especially in our time. Mothers, it's next to impossible to be able to talk about everything that a mother does, from conception of the baby through teenage years into adulthood. And even after they are adults, parents or mothers still worry about their children, still think about their children, still you are basically worried about their children. It's not next to impossible. And only God really knows the extent of a mother's responsibilities as well as her love. Only God knows. When a woman is pregnant, some of them get sick for months. Some of them throw up almost every morning. Even the food that they normally like to eat, at that point in time, they can't eat it. All kinds of hormonal changes are going on in their bodies. Just imagine the stress, the pressure. For 9 months, I visited a woman many years ago. She was in the hospital, lying in bed. She was not sick, but the doctors thought it was important for her to lie down, to lie in bed, and I know for weeks, to make sure that she did not have a miscarriage. And then comes the birth, the pain of childbirth. Only a mother can explain that. And then after the child comes home, after she brings the baby home, the time she spends taking care of this baby 24/7, that baby is unable to do anything for himself or herself. And it's typically the woman who is taking care of the baby in terms of feeding, cleaning, nurturing, doing everything to make sure that this child survives. Sleepless nights when the child is sick. She wakes up several times a night, and this can go on for months. And tonight, for those of you in Ghana, I want to do a little bit of show and tell. This is a nice carving that I picked from Ghana, Accra. I just want you to take a look at it. I'm showing it to you not only because it is nice, but it's because of the symbolism, what it really represents, especially in the Akan traditional areas, in the rural areas. This is a picture of a mother Now you know it's a mother because that's the baby behind her back. Let me point it out where. That's the head of the baby. And what sometimes I find troubling when I see this is what is on her head, the load. Very typical. She is almost like a burden bearer because you see it, especially in rural areas, in places where they have subsistence farming, small villages. When I was growing up, I saw this about my own mother. Early in the morning, we would walk several miles to the farm. I was about 6 or 7 years old, maybe three miles. And then we would go to the farm, and my mom would be humming, weeding, making mounds where we sowed onions. We planted onions and peanuts. And then she would work and sometimes cook for us to eat there on the farm. And then she would uproot cocoyams or yam or cassava or cut plantain and arrange them neatly, nicely on a pan. And she would carry that home. She would carry that with my youngest brother at that time on her back. And my dad would be following her, holding a cutlass. And even at that young age, I saw it and I knew that there was something not right about it because I didn't see what was wrong about my father actually holding my youngest brother while my mother carried the load on her head. And then as soon as we get home, she doesn't even rest. She will start cooking fufu, especially soup, making sure everything is going well, at the same time attending to my youngest brother and attending to us. And she will make sure that we eat, that my dad, he was living in another part of town, and we had to carry the food to him. All this time, my mom would not even have time to take her bath. By the time she's ready to take her bath, it will be about 10 p.m. So for about 14 to 18 hours, that woman had been on her feet, working, making sure that everything was in order, that we had food to eat. Day in, day out, about 4 times a week, my mom would do that. In addition to also cooking fufu in the morning, the people will line up to come and buy fufu. She worked so hard. She worked so hard. That was a long time ago, and I'm hoping that the situation probably has changed for the better. The other day, my wife and I were watching this video about a woman, this time in Accra. She's a young woman. She happens to have two twins. She happens to have twins. I'm not sure about, I think they're a boy and a girl, about 2 years old. And the strangest thing, it's the strangest thing that I've ever seen. This was atypical. She was carrying the babies, the kids, on her back, not side by side on her back, but one directly behind her back, and the other kid behind the first kid, and she had tied them together like this, and from the bottom up like that, and she was carrying these kids, 2 kids, on her back. Now, the average weight of a 2-year-old healthy baby, boy or toddler, boy or girl, is about 25 to 28 pounds. So for those twins, you are talking about at least 50 pounds of weight behind her back. And on top of that, she was carrying a container full of water, selling at Makola in the heat. And I looked at it and I said, these boys, these kids better grow up and take good care of their mother. And what is sometimes so troubling is that these kids grow up and then some unscrupulous, fake prophet, false prophet, or false teacher, or false pastor will tell this child that the person responsible for the lack of progress in your life is your mother. She is a witch. Or sometimes your grandmother, she is a witch. She is the one who is blocking your progress. And what is sad about that is that people sometimes believe that. And you see, typically because a child does not see what the mother does between the ages of, the first day they are born until they're about 4 or 5, because they don't see all that happens, they forget. They really don't appreciate their mothers as much as they should. And to think that a child grown up would actually believe such nonsense and subject the mother sometimes to verbal abuse as well as physical abuse, it's just beyond me. It's amazing that this goes on. That poor mother has worked her life, pouring her love into you. All the sacrifices she has made on your behalf to make sure that you live. If she had any desire to kill you or to destroy you, she could have done. She had so many opportunities. Right from the womb, she could have aborted you easily. That is, if she were not a believer. But for 24 hours, non-stop, this woman made sure that you survived. And that's how you pay her back. Forgetting all that she has done for you. If you had any reason to destroy you, why would she wait? Why would she spend all that time taking good care of you until when you are an adult for her to now go out to destroy you? It's beyond me. Sometimes it's like a poor old lady minding her own business, trying to live, sometimes ostracized, literally abandoned, living alone while she has kids. Think about that. If you are fortunate enough to have your mother living, and somehow you have turned your back on her, remember that what goes around comes around. That someday you will also get old. Sometimes people think that all old women are witches. You will also get old someday. So think about that. Now I have a lot more to say about that. Another thing mothers do, in addition to physically taking care of their children, many of them also, of course, are concerned with their spiritual situation, condition, spiritual well-being. And when everybody has given up on that child, it is typically the mother who stands in the gap. A lot of times, the father may not even be there. Or they may be there physically, but they may not be there emotionally. Somehow in our Akan culture, and in fact in many cultures around the world, we have put the responsibility of taking care of the child on the mother. She is the burden bearer that I showed you, both on her back as well as on her head. Literally, symbolic of what a mother, a typical Ghanaian Akan mother does. I can speak about that. I don't know about the others. But even if your mother never carried anything on her head, I bet she carried you on her back. And even aside from that, she was primarily responsible, especially when the father was not there. Single mothers, like this mother I talked about, carrying twins on her back. They hustle just for the sake of their children, to make sure that the children survive, that they grow to be good, profitable members of society. That is the woman's job. And also, they stand in the gap, taking care, praying for their children. I want to talk about Bishop Curtis Kelly. In his book, Bound to Lose, Destined to Win, Bishop Kelly tells about his life while growing up in a demon-controlled home in Stamford, Connecticut, and how his godly mother's faith, her vigilance, her prayer, perseverance in prayer made a difference in his life. See, Curtis was the seventh of 11 children. His father was a voodoo high priest, and he ruled his house with an iron fist, beating everybody, including Curtis' mother. Now, Curtis was the seventh born, and he was viewed as special. So the father brought a voodoo priestess from Haiti to live in their home, to teach him how to become a high priest, to train him. At the age of 4, Curtis wanted to join his older brothers whilst they smoked marijuana. And they would tell him, "You are too small. Get away from us." And he would go into his room pouting. And one day, he was pouting when a demon appeared to him and showed him how he could burn his plastic toy soldiers and breathe in the smoke in order to get high. By the time he was 6 years old, he was smoking marijuana and doing dope, cocaine. And the demons came to him, some torturing him. And he wrote that for 11 years, he slept about 2 hours every night. He could levitate. He could go through walls, go through glass. He could curse somebody and see that person die. At the age of 13, he had a gun. In fact, the mothers and the parents in that neighborhood want their children to stay away from him. Now, many people would have given up on him as bad news, but not his mother. Whenever his dad cursed them, the mother would pronounce blessings upon them and anoint them with oil. She kept praying. She was determined not to let Satan have her son. Kept praying. At some point, in fact, there was a time when his dad and that woman who was living with them were trying to sneak him out and take him to Haiti. And the mother, Curtis' mother, was literally holding one hand while the other woman was holding the other, pulling. They were determined to take him away, and she was determined to not have anything like that happen to her son. When Curtis was, I think, about 15 years, he died of drug overdose. And he remembered being pulled down by demons, about 30 or so demons. They pulled him down to the pit or to hell or whatever, and they were torturing him, and they were laughing at him and beating him with something that looked like a sledgehammer, torturing him and laughing at him and saying, "We deceived you, now we have you, now you have no hope. You cannot escape from us." And then while they kept on doing that, they looked up and there was this shining light. And a couple of hands came and grabbed him, held him by the shoulder. And they were saying, "No, no, no, you can't take him away. You can't take him away. He belongs to us." And then he heard a voice after he had been taken away and put into his body. "Because of your mother's prayers and because you were chosen to do a work for us, you were saved." Because of your mother's prayers. She stood in the gap. If you are a mother and you have children, you have a critical role. Please pray for your children. Pronounce good things. When you are upset, instead of speaking, because you're speaking something bad, negative, please be quiet. But every time you speak to the children, make sure that you speak positive things into their lives. Pray for them. Some of you may have kids. Maybe they are teenagers who have even probably now left home. They've turned their backs on you. The situation looks hopeless, but I will encourage you, don't stop. Everybody may have given up on your child, but don't stop. Keep praying. At the very least, keep praying. And God will honor you. God will honor your prayers. God will hear your prayers. What you say as a parent is so important. So important. I want to encourage you. Keep praying. Even if they have turned their backs on you, even if they have abused you, even if they have misused you, please don't give up. Don't give up. Keep standing in the gap. Some of you mothers or fathers, as the case may be, those of you who are a bit older, may be familiar with the name Enrico Caruso. When Enrico was about 10 years old, his dream had been that he wanted to be an opera singer. And the maestro who was teaching him heard him sing for the first time and told him, "You have no voice. You can't sing. You haven't any voice at all. Your voice sounds like the wind in the shutters." Now you can imagine the impact that those words had on that little kid. But his mother will have none of that. She had visions of greatness for her son. And she believed that he had the talent to sing. So putting her arms around him, she encouraged him, said, "My boy, I'm going to make every sacrifice to pay for your voice lessons." And she kept her word. And Enrico Caruso became one of the greatest operatic tenor singers the world had ever known. A mother's stand, a mother's faith in her child, a mother's willingness to take no for an answer. Enrico Caruso. That was what became of that little boy whom the maestro discouraged. Thomas Alva Edison, the inventor of the light bulb and many other things, wrote this about his mother, a tribute. He wrote, he said, "I did not have my mother for long, but she cast over me an influence which has lasted all my life. The good effects of her early training I can never lose. If it had not been for her appreciation and her faith in me at a critical time in my experience, I should never likely have become an inventor. I was always a careless boy, and with a mother of different mental caliber, I should have turned out badly. But her firmness, her sweetness, her goodness were potent powers to keep me in the right path. My mother was the making of me. The memory of her will always be a blessing to me. Now, I know there are many mothers out there who are, excuse me, who are doing everything to make sure your children succeed faithfully. Nobody knows it, but God sees it. See, God knew the critical role that mothers will play in our lives, in our existence. That is why he made a commandment about how children are supposed to treat their parents. And every one of us is a child of somebody, of a mother. Whether alive or dead, we are all children. And so it is up to us to obey this commandment. He says, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God gives thee. Exodus 20, verse 12. Now in Ephesians chapter 6, verses 1 to 3, we read almost a repetition of the same commandment. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise. And what is the promise? That it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth. Honor your father and your mother. And God promises a blessing, long life. He says that it may be well with you if we honor our parents. And tonight I'm talking about the mother. What do you think will happen when you abuse your mother because you think she is a witch? You only bring a curse on yourself. See, to honor means to esteem, to have in high regard, to respect, to be loyal to be devoted to. Your mother deserves that. She deserves to be honored. Woe unto any Ghanaian woman who is old. Typically, we think she's a witch. So sad. So sad. And a lot of mothers out there are lonely. And some even probably have regretted bringing children into the world. Because you as a child, you have now in your power, the power to make a difference. She took care of you all these years, and now she's old. Now she doesn't matter. Forgotten. Honor your father and your mother. You think God does not see what is going on? How do you think you will prosper if you abuse your mother? It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because as you mistreat her, as you abuse her, as you sometimes physically or emotionally, verbally abuse her, you are shortening your own life and your progress comes into question. Honor your father and your mother. How do you honor that? Your mother? It begins with appreciation, as I talked about the other time. I suggested letting her know, because a lot of times we don't let our mothers know how much we appreciate them. It begins with appreciation. How you talk to her, she deserves the respect. How you talk to her. And not only that, take good care of her. Make sure that just as she took care of you, make sure that you ate, make sure that you were clothed, make sure that you were cared for when you were sick. Why can't you do the same for her? It's the least you can do. Take care of her. If you are in a position to take care of your mother, but unfortunately your mother has passed on, you did not have the opportunity, my condolences. I know how it feels. But you can still do so. You can still help by finding maybe an old woman, a widow, somebody who needs help, and help that person money-wise. You can, quote unquote, adopt that person as your mother. Or even if you can't, there's always somebody in need. Oh, there's always somebody in need. Many, 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 many old people out there are lonely. Where I used to work, I'll talk about this and I'll conclude. I worked with the Department of Taxation, and there was this lady, an old lady, who would call sometime, well, almost like twice a year. That is the time that I spoke to her. Over many years, she would call, supposedly to talk about a tax issue. It was not about a tax issue. This lady had nobody to talk to, and she would talk about all that she was going through and her fear of falling down, and she had to go and have surgery, and she would be asking me my opinion, and I would quietly listen to her. And then at the end she said, "Thank you so much, Nicholas. You are the only person who listens to me. So many people are in need. You can make a difference, especially in the life of your mother, in the life of an old lady out there in the neighborhood whom everybody has like ostracized. God sees it all. God sees it all." Truly, the impact of a good mother is hard to measure. I believe a good mother's love comes closest to the love that we read about in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Her love protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. She stands as a pillar of strength and encouragement when others have given up. And many a great man out there, like Enrico Caruso and Thomas Edison, who look back on their lives and find that the difference maker was their mother. Bishop Curtis, one life. Today, he goes around the world telling his story, preaching, and many people hear the word and give their lives to Christ. One person, because one mother decided not to quit, not to give up on her child. Mothers are difference makers and deserve all the honor, all the help we can give to them. Friend, as we've seen from these examples that I've talked about, it takes a determined person, such as a loving mother, standing in the gap to make what seems impossible possible. Let's thank God for mothers. Let's thank God for our mothers, not only through words, but especially through actions. Don't ever underestimate the power of a mother's influence. You just couldn't have made it this far without her. Period. See, in my opinion, mothers are the true salt of the earth and the light of the world. If your mother is still alive, bless God and bless your mother. Take good care of her, and God will bless you. Your mother will be happy. That's all they want. That's all they need. Thank you for taking time out to listen. I'll see you next time. May God bless you. May God bless your family. If you are a mother, may God draw you closer to himself and strengthen you and comfort you and give you hope and peace. May his joy and his peace be yours always. Thank you. Good night.